What's up, everybody? It is TGI Friday. That's right. Thank goodness it is Friday, also known as Follow Up Friday. I hope you had a great week and preparing to go into the weekend. Hopefully, we're able to stay dry. It has been absolutely gorgeous and I love it. And so I hope you've had a great week. So this week, I want to start a new series. And what we're going to talk about for the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about drawing close. And it's going to be based out of James chapter 4, where James is talking about how we are to draw close to God. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to unpack that passage of scripture a little bit and look at some key things that we can do and to draw close to God, but also to help us better identify maybe why we're experiencing some of the hardships and the things that we are going through. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's dive on in. It's almost summer, so we might as well mentally put ourselves as diving into a nice cold lake, pool, ocean, whatever. Anyway, so let's do that right now with our devotion. As Christ followers, we should be, and I say should, be desiring to draw closer to God. Although sometimes I question whether or not there are some Christ followers out there that are doing that, just being honest. But most certainly as leaders, we should be drawing close to God every day, because not only are we going to have that personal relationship that's just so rich in nutrients, but it also provides us with the ability to steward the call that He has given each and every one of us. So super important for us as leaders. But it's funny to me, as I was reading through this and I was praying about this, that oftentimes when we are drawing close to God, we find ourselves in some of the toughest situations in our lives, whether it's random things that come up that we weren't expecting, whether it's personal things that we're identifying with or realizing about ourselves, and it just seems like tough to deal with. It's funny to me how that happens. And as I was praying and reading, I'm beginning to see, and I understand this through other passages of Scripture, is that when we are drawing closer to God, there is a sanctification process or a refining process that we as Christ followers are going to go through. And so if we are never put into a situation to where we can grow or be refined, then how is it possible for us to draw close to an perfect God with all of our imperfections and impurities? Yes, absolutely. Jesus Christ died on the cross as a sacrifice for our sin. And because of that, we can come boldly into the throne room of God and we can have a relationship with Him. That still doesn't mean that we don't have to strive to seek God's righteousness and to be mature and made perfect in our faith. So, with that being said, I want to take the next several weeks to look at James, and I want to take a look at this passage. James he's talking to a group of first century Jewish Christians who are living in Gentile communities in Palestine, and so you can imagine and put into context that these Jewish Christians are living amongst Gentiles. I could imagine that they have found themselves in a place where they've had to draw close to God and had to humble themselves before Him so that they can draw close to God. And so anyway, with that being said, we're going to look at 3 key steps as Christ followers, how we can examine our lives and how we can practically draw close to God with these 3 key things. We're going to look at humbling ourselves, resisting Satan, and purifying our hearts. And so today I'm just going to go briefly and quickly through humbling ourselves, which will be our first key. Humbling ourselves. Humble yourself, or eat some humble pie, or take some humble pie to the face. Be humble, or be humbled. All working titles. But we're talking about being humble. Know this truth. that God opposes pride. God opposes the proud, but gives grace, the empowerment to do his will, to the humble. James is quoting from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 34. I just think that's such a cool passage of scripture, that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. When we are drawing close to someone, doing something that causes opposition is never a good idea. All right? It's a real key thing. And so it's just amazing to me that some people choose to operate in pride, yet it is a direct opposition to God. And so James is very clear about how we are to humble ourselves, or how we are to draw closer to God. We're talking about drawing close, right? So he's very clear that in order for us to draw close to God, one of the first prerequisites to this is to humble ourselves. I think that's interesting. When we humble ourselves, here it is, we position ourselves, when we humble ourselves, God positions us into a place of honor. It's in verse 10. You don't believe me? Look at it, verse 10. But anyway, so let's go on. It says, I've got here that godly leaders, if you're taking notes, godly leaders are humble leaders. Now, humble does not mean that you are a doormat, okay? It really means to have a modest opinion of oneself, okay? A modest opinion of oneself. Thing you want to write down. How can we be a humble leader? Be teachable, all right? Be teachable. Always be open to learn. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing. Be teachable. Trust me, you do not know everything. And even the things that you do know, I can guarantee you there's someone that knows more about it. So as leaders, it is super important for us to be humble, be teachable. Because again, the moment we stop learning is the moment we stop growing. The second thing I want to talk about in being humble is being a humble leader is to be a servant. Be a servant. Jesus humbled himself into the position of a servant. Jesus, okay? If Jesus humbled himself, you are most certainly no greater than Jesus. And so as a leader, as a humble leader, we need to be a servant. Serve your team members. Serve the team members that are above you, that are below you, and that are side by side with you. That is super important. And so as we're drawing close to God, always remember we have to humble ourselves. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. When we are a humble leader, we are first and foremost teachable, and we are a servant. I hope this helps you. I hope this encourages you, and I pray that you guys have a wonderful weekend. We love you. We will see you Sunday on Mother's Day, and just a great thank you to all the mothers out there. Again, we love you guys. Have a great weekend.